there was something that jumped out at me first thing this morning. And so this is probably somebody had asked yesterday, what's your daily routine? The very first thing I like to do in the morning is pull up my futures grid. Because by doing this, starting here, and usually I look at the daily charts, I can kind of get an idea of where the context of current price is. But also, too, if I start from here, then I can do things like I'll just go and see, well, what did Japan do overnight? Well, you can see Japan just painted a big fat doji. That's kind of indecision. I also like to ask, what's natural gas doing? Because you notice natural gas, it actually usually rallies when the market is weak and it sells off when the market is strong. So those are a couple sort of like markets that I like to see that I don't trade either of them, but they're very, very good little sort of helpers for me to get a context of what I'm seeing in the market. I also, when I first wake up in the morning, I like to just take a look at what people's temperament is. And keep in mind, I get up before the sort of U.S. retail open. So really what this is a reflection of how people are feeling sort of overnight. Europeans, Asians. So first thing in the morning, I get sort of a feel. You can see the Japanese yen has an M top working, just as an example. This is a risk off proxy. So if I see an M working in the Japanese yen, then that probably means that I'm expecting to see a bid come in on the stock market. So second sort of thing that I like to do when I get up in the morning is I like to sort of see what is the risk on, risk off sort of vote in the marketplace. I've created this matrix here, which is like a 64,000 foot view of the market. I don't know whether you have the ability to create this or not, but this gives me a very quick, very easy way. Keep in mind, these are all on good old Tesla half-hour charts. So this is a very quick, very easy way for me to see what the tone of the market is on any given day. Is the US dollar catching a bid? Today you can see, especially with the digestion of that big US spending bill, obviously the US dollar is not catching a bid. And if anything, that's sort of like a risk on that people are actually taking their money out of US dollars and UST bills, and they're going and investing them around the world. I mean, you see, look how strong the commodity currencies are all this morning. So money's flowing back into the commodities, and sure enough, we look down at the commodities, gold, silver, crude, everything's up. For the risk on assets, right? Looking at these currencies, these are all risk on assets except for maybe the yen. So we should see that they're kind of heading in the same direction as things like crypto. Things like the S&P 500, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, the NASDAQ 100, the Russell 2000. And hopefully you can see that they're all basically pointing in the same direction. Risk on is the theme today. Interesting, we have the bonds actually even moving up on the day. So that's a little bit head scratching. But keep in mind, the bonds did get hit very hard on Friday on that jobs report. So remember I had said earlier, you got the U.S. government now coming out with a massive stimulus package. I think it's like a $500 billion spending or something, 400 billion or whatever. And on top of that, we had that very strong employment report. I mean, if anything, you put the two together and the Fed, as I had said earlier, you might find that the Fed actually comes out interim meeting and says, you know what, the data is so strong, we got to raise rates. You might find that. Be interesting to see, like Bitcoin and, crude and the stock market, everything was just booming higher this morning. Now, the one thing that did sort of leave me again, this is part of my sort of morning routine, trying to just take an overview look of the market. We go back to the dashboard, and the dashboard's kind of like, yeah, I mean, it's an uppy market. Don't get me wrong. Johnny Bollinger, he used to always say one of the strongest signs you can possibly have from a market is it being overbought. But we actually have the fast breaking down through the slow, which is a bearish vote. Now, it broke down with slow pointing up. That's a weak signal to us. If this thing like counter trend rallies and the slow starts to actually start pointing down, and then this thing turns down, we got a pretty big sell signal. So, just looking at this, I'm thinking overbought, weak sell signal. Then I'm looking at my future spreads, waking up first thing in the morning. And the one thing that jumped out at me through all of this was the semiconductors. Remember, semiconductors, and if you don't know this, maybe write this down. Semiconductors are actually supposed to be the ultimate leading indicator for the stock market. So the question would be, why are the semiconductors down as hard as they are? And the interesting thing is that they were even down pre-market, right? Like, so if we go down to like, say, a 10-minute chart, there's that's the post-market on Friday. This is the pre-market Monday morning. And you notice, holy Jesus, that's an M top that came in the pre-market. Something clearly happened. Now, let's see if you guys can put the two together. Why would the semiconductors break down like this? Did something happen? Or maybe did something not happen? Something didn't happen. That's right. So, remember, half of the reason why the stock market was so uppy this morning was it was sort of like, oh my God, here comes a whole bunch of new spending. Which big fat cat is going to drive their big 300-pound belly up to the food trough, jam their head into the trough, and start feasting? And that's the remember our risk on. Everybody was like, oh, spending bill passes right on, free money for everybody. But I don't know whether you guys noticed, the semiconductor guys, they got on. I did find it interesting that right out of the gate, the semiconductors started to fall apart. And you tell me, I mean, what are we supposed to think if we ever see the market smiling at us? That's not a good sign, is it? Our breadth indicator. Do you guys see now how I'm going to put all of these pieces together at the beginning of my day to get sort of an image of what I should be expecting in the marketplace? You can actually go into the breadth page, and I'll put this away now, right here. And we can actually drill down to the actual semiconductors themselves. There it is, semiconductors. Now, you tell me, what's the bread saying there? Is the bread saying, oh, that's a super happy market? That to me looks like actually the sell signal was issued like, about a week or two ago, eh? This is how I would use the paid for site subscription to help you understand sort of the context of the market. And the great part about this is you can drill right down. We can even now, let's go and actually look at vectors. I mean, hell, maybe there's even short ideas. Look at that analog devices. Holy moly, that thing's moved up quite a bit. You could draw like an inverted head and shoulders off of that. Looks like the target's probably up here. So then the question is, do we have bearish momentum divergence developing here? And then this is, of course, directly related to the school material. If we had a trade location, i.e. this was the end of a harmonic pattern, if you're in level 1, you're probably not going to know that. You could probably do extension levels off of this range back up here. That's probably 113, 127. You've got this inverted head and shoulders, so you could always do 200% extensions off of that like we did in the gold trade in that extension module. So at this point up here, if you're thinking about, wow, this thing's coming off a long way, so considering the way the semiconductors are breaking down and the way the breadth indicator looks, the way the breadth for the semiconductors looks. I like the idea of hunting a short here.